Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we have to talk about how Ford has officially admitted defeat in the face of the monstrosity that is Tesla. Before getting to this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And if you see more content just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post this type of content every single day. Let's get into it. Let's start off by going over some numbers because, well, I love numbers. So on any given month, Tesla is going to sell right around 100,000 electric vehicles, a little bit less than that, but we'll just say 100,000 to make numbers nice and easy. And Ford, on the other hand, sells close to about 10,000 electric vehicles per month. So there's a pretty big difference in terms of the overall volume with both of the automakers. Now, Ford is boasting that their electric sales are up by 100%, which, yeah, that's true, but it's like you're still a low volume automaker when it comes to, electric vehicle sales, especially again, when you compare Ford to the big boy Tesla. However, that being said, Ford is now America's #2 electric automaker, and so that is a pretty big deal. So Ford is obviously taking this win and they're celebrating a little bit, but they're using this to continue to move the ball forward with their overall objective, and that objective is to become as much like Tesla as they can possibly manage without getting sued into oblivion by the dealerships. And so if you don't already know, Ford has actually already split up their business to kind of accomplish this. They have a section of their business that is dedicated to producing internal combustion engine vehicles, a section that is committed to producing commercial vehicles, and then a section that is committed to producing electric vehicles. And these sections operate completely differently. So with the commercial vehicles, right, that's typically going to be a fleet type customer, and their whole buying experience isn't really going to change. Fleet type customers basically go into a fleet salesperson and they buy in bulk, they use their fleet discount, and it's almost like a direct to consumer sale type experience. Now with the ICE experience, right, that's just your normal dealership experience where you can order a vehicle if you want, or you can buy one off of the lot, and you're obviously gonna have to do the negotiating back and forth and all that kind of stuff. So just your normal dealership experience. Now on the EV side of things, Ford is trying to not do that. And so how they have this set up is with an EV, you have to order it from Ford, and there's not going to be any EVs on the ground that aren't custom orders. And this is a huge change because, again, with internal combustion engine vehicles with Ford, it's like you can go into a Ford dealership and you can just go and buy a vehicle off the lot today. Whereas if you wanted a Ford Lightning or a Mustang Mach-E, you have to order it. You can't just go and buy one off the lot. They're all special orders. And Ford is doing this, again, to mimic Tesla, because that's what Tesla does. Tesla doesn't have dealerships with vehicles in stock. They only build orders. And so you have that side that has obviously changed quite a bit. And then the other side is the overall dealership experience associated with these purchases. Because again, with the internal combustion engine vehicles, yes, there are surveys and the customer experience is important. But with EVs, it's even more important because dealers don't get paid on these EV deals unless they get a good survey from the customer. And this is because how Ford has had the vehicles set up from an MSRP and an invoice perspective, they're basically the same price. And with some of these EVs, the invoice price is actually higher than the MSRP. And so the dealer actually loses money when they sell it to a customer, but they'll get that money kicked back to them from Ford if that customer has a good experience, i.e. giving that customer a Tesla style of experience where there's no haggling, there's no dealership BS. It's just like you order the car from Ford, you pick up the car, and then you drive it, home, all that kind of stuff. And then another big change is the fact that Ford wants to go back to the days where they controlled more of their supply chain. So if you don't know right now, what a lot of automakers do is they basically just purchase a bunch of parts from a bunch of different parts makers, and then they put all those parts together to produce their vehicles. And this has obviously made it so that vehicles can actually be produced at a lower cost because you can have a parts maker that just focuses on building one specific part, and they can become really good at that and then just make that part as cheap as possible. And then the automakers obviously get a benefit off of that, and then that gets carried down to the customers to an extent, but obviously some of that goes to profit with the automakers. However, the problem with this is obviously going to be quality control, because if you have a bunch of different parts from a bunch of different parts makers and you put them all together, right, are they really going to work together like you think they're going to? And that's actually one of the biggest challenges for engineers at automakers, is making it so all of these different components actually function together. Well, when you have an automaker like Tesla that builds almost everything in-house, they don't have those issues. And the thing about EVs is a lot of what goes into EVs EVs is frankly software. And automakers don't even handle their own software nowadays. And so it's just this crazy situation where most OEM cars are not truly like cars from those automakers. It's just basically a parts bucket, and then they throw it all together, and then that's the car. And so with Tesla being so successful with the basic business model that Ford actually used to use back in the day, automakers like Ford are going, okay, well, we should probably go back to that. And so this is another shift, is Ford's like, okay, you know what? We need to, again, control, the production of the raw materials that are going to go into our cars, and then also just the individual parts and pieces. And yeah, this might bring up costs slightly in the short term, but in the long term, our vehicles are going to be a lot more reliable because the components will mesh with each other, right? We don't have to do all these crazy engineering things to make parts that aren't supposed to be together work together, right? And so it's just, Ford trying to be what Ford used to be, and basically, again, copy Tesla, because that's what Tesla already does. So now we get into the section where we talk about if this is actually going to work or not. So first off, on the whole split business model side of things, I'm actually a big fan of this split business model, because it does something for Ford that none of the other automakers have going for them right now. And that is the fact that Ford can build amazing vehicles in every single important segment. Again, internal combustion engine cars, because there are people that are like, EVs, that's it, that's all that the world needs. And it's like, maybe in the future, but right now internal combustion engine cars are still very important. That's what most people purchase. There are more sales with those than EV sales. And so having a branch of Ford still focus on that, I think, is amazing. And I mean, it shows with the product we're getting, right? We have a lot of exciting product coming from that department. And you look at other manufacturers like General Motors, and their internal combustion engine cars have pretty much taken a complete dump because they're not focused on that at all, because their team's all in on the EV stuff. And we'll see if that actually ends up paying off. And then, the commercial side of things, same thing. And then with the EV side of things, again, the customer experience obviously is not perfect yet. It'll take some time for dealerships and for Ford to really perfect the system. But with what they're doing, where they're making it so dealerships are not getting paid unless they give the customer a good experience, I think that's the route to go. And I know some people are going to be like, it's still not direct to consumer sales. And it's like, fair enough, but that's the best that Ford can manage with the situation they're in, because Ford and all the other OEMs don't have the money to buy out all the dealerships to go direct to consumer. And so if they set up their vehicle pricing and their basically payments situation to dealers in a way where dealers have to take care of customers for them to get paid, then I think that's a win for everyone. And, with what I've seen with these EV deliveries, and from what I've heard from people that have taken delivery of their Lightning and Mustang Mach-E's and everything, it seems like for the most part, it's been pretty good. Some people have had some pretty negative situations because, Ford dealers try to do Ford dealer stuff, but again, it'll be smoothed out over the long term. And then when it comes to the whole bringing everything in-house so that Ford is basically building everything for their vehicles and controlling, the sourcing of materials and everything, I think that's actually super smart. And I think that is going to be the thing to do in the future, because again, Tesla has already proved that it works really well in the modern world, and Ford proved, like half a century ago, plus that it worked really good back then. It's crazy that Ford went away from that model, because it worked so well for them for so long, and it is what basically made Ford Ford. And so it's funny that they completely forgot where they came from, and now they're finally coming back. But again, I think this is also really positive, because this ultimately will lead to better product that is more reliable. And what that means is that maybe Ford will finally not be the recall king of the world, right? That is definitely a possibility there. Now that leaves us with one more big question. Is this enough to push Ford into a position to catch up to Tesla or potentially surpass Tesla? And the short answer is probably not. With all the research that I've done, it looks like Tesla is just bound for success at this point. They're an absolute monstrosity. They have so much infrastructure already built, and they are working on more infrastructure that is just frankly so far ahead of all of the other automakers. The other automakers are basically trying to jerry-rig factories and everything to somewhat work to build EVs, whereas Tesla has everything built up from the ground up to work with EVs and EV sales. And that's frankly why they are so successful. And so, yeah, I just don't really think it's possible for an OEM like Ford to surpass Tesla with everything that Tesla has going for them. And again, this is coming from someone who's not a huge Tesla fan. I'm not a fan of the product, but I am a fan of the infrastructure they have built and everything that they've built from a business model perspective. But I do think that Ford plus General Motors plus Stellantis, like all combined with all of their sales with EVs, has a chance at like beating Tesla. But again, that's not just one automaker, that's several automakers combined. And so it's kind of a weird situation, a weird world that we're going to be moving into. But I do see one thing potentially throttling Tesla in the future if they don't fix this. And this could give Ford the hand up if they're able to scale up their EV production fast enough. And that is the fact that Tesla still does not build a single affordable EV. Their most affordable car is like $50,000 basically. And so if Tesla continues to focus on being a luxury EV automaker and doesn't actually build something that's affordable, and then Ford comes in and builds something that's affordable. I mean, GM's already done that, right? We've got the Chevy Bolt, for example, and there are other automakers that are starting to release more affordable EVs. As soon as these more affordable EVs have, I guess, just better range and the quality is better, the Bolt, frankly, is a pretty good vehicle overall. But the point that I'm trying to make is once there's more affordable options from OEMs, and if Tesla still isn't making anything, then I think that leaves more potential for Ford and the other American automakers to catch up to Tesla and surpass Tesla. But only time will tell at this point. I mean, Tesla has been talking about building something that's more affordable for quite some time. And so, I mean, who knows at this point, but don't hold your breath for that Tesla Model 2 that we've all been waiting for. So that's pretty much going to sum things up for a video talking about how Ford has basically admitted defeat to Tesla, because Ford is literally saying that their business model does not work for the purpose of building EVs and overtaking Tesla. So unless they basically copy Tesla, then they're just going to continue to not sell nearly as many EVs as what Tesla will sell. So it's kind of an interesting thing to hear from a company where they're basically saying, yep, our biggest competitor is doing it right, and unless we copy our biggest competitor, we are not going to be winning. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this overall topic, and I'll see ya.